All right, everybody, welcome back into the Leaning Into Leadership podcast. This is episode 223, and this is the sixth and final episode in our special series when I have been sitting down with the NASSP national finalists for both Middle School Principal of the Year and High School Principal of the Year. Up to this point, folks, you've had the opportunity to hear three amazing Middle School Principal of the Year finalists, Damon Lewis, Sherry Bollert, and Miguel Salazar. And up to this point, also Tony Catani and Tarita Walker, two of the three finalists for the National High School Principal of the Year. Joining me today for this sixth episode is Shauna Haney, who is the high school principal at Ogden High School in Ogden, Utah, and the third of the three finalists for the National Principal of the Year. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Shauna, and then we'll let her fill in some of the blanks. Before leading Ogden High School, Shauna was an assistant principal and an exercise science, health, special education, and physical education teacher. She is a two-time Teacher of the Year. She's also received a Distinguished Leadership Award in 2014. And under her leadership, Ogden was one of Utah's first schools to implement a no cell phone policy. Yes, that's right, folks. A no cell phone policy. I'm sure you're going to have questions about that. We'll definitely have Shauna share with us on that. Her leadership has also helped retain 90% of her teaching staff in this post-COVID world due to her focus on positive school culture and recognition of faculty and staff. This is going to be a fantastic conversation. I can't wait to have Shauna share with us some of the progress she's made in her goals towards literacy, graduation, PBIS, and her talent development. Man, all of that stuff, it's amazing when you sit down and you read the actual bio, how, man, a lot of amazing stuff happening. So, Shauna, welcome into the Leading Into Leadership podcast.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Excited to have you here and excited to dive into this conversation. Sounds like there's a lot of great things happening at Ogden High School. Definitely want to talk about that. I'd love to hear a little bit of the story behind how you found out that you were Utah High School Principal of the Year. And also maybe we'll talk a little bit about the 10-minute presentation you get to make at United later this week. Can't even imagine how you guys are going to get through stuff in 10 minutes. But before we do all of that, Shauna, I just read your bio, which is really awesome. Maybe, I don't know, zoom out for us just a little bit, fill in some of the gaps, and tell the listeners a little bit about Shauna Haney.
Darrin, I have to tell you, I love teaching. I think I still miss the classroom every day. I think that was the teaching and coaching were the greatest thing, and that's why I went into education. So I love being around the students. I love watching them grow and watching them become like the people they're meant to be. I think that's the greatest part. So this is a little bit, obviously, a different capacity. Now we're working with adults. But I'm lucky because I still get to work with students. So Ogden High, it is a wonderful place, one of the most unique buildings I've ever been in. It's old. It was built in 1937 and looks like a castle, right? Sometimes people refer to it as the castle on the hill. So we have a wonderful community that is supportive. Our alumni are very big into Ogden High and once a tiger, always a tiger. So we have great supports. I think we have the best students, and they need us, and they need good people in their lives. And I feel so lucky to have the amazing teachers and staff that I have in my building. And that's what I would tell you is that I love the people that I work with, and I love our students. So.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I'm curious. Obviously, we were talking about this before we hit the record button. We both come from that background of teaching and coaching before becoming school administrators, and I'm always curious to hear what are some of the things, some of the lessons that you learned specifically as a head coach. What are some of those lessons you learned about leading a team that have translated into the work you've done as a high school principal?
I think probably one of the most important things I think is allowing every single team member, no matter their strength on the team or the roster, whatever you want to look at, every single student athlete should feel like they are the most important person on that team, right? They should feel like you value them the most. I think if we do that right in coaching and we do that right in leadership within school, then our teachers should feel that way as well. They should feel valued. They should feel heard. They should feel supported. So I always had, and usually we had between 27, 28, depending on a team. We always talked about 1 through 27, like we are all important. No one person is more important than another, and valuing that. The other thing I think is transparency. So having open, honest communication. And sometimes I think that is the hard part of definitely an administrator job, but also as a coach. And I think early on in my career, it was much easier to kind of skip over the hard conversations. And I feel like when you do that, you make it more challenging for later in life or later in the season. I think if we can be transparent, but always be kind, I think that we're going to be better off in the end. And I feel like that's the same thing with my teachers and with my students, like having open, honest conversations that sometimes are not easy. Sometimes they're not popular, but that you need to have so that you can grow.
So let's maybe take that just a step further. One of the things that I found a little bit challenging, at least early on, I think over the years as the high school principal, I got a little bit better at it, a little bit of practice. I know you said you've been at Ogden High for 8 years. When you very first start into that role, you have probably some type of a vision. And I know you worked in that building before you became the high school principal, very similar to my story, being an assistant principal first. One, what changed for you to start to identify your vision, hey, this is what's possible here compared to maybe what it was before? And, you talk about leading a volleyball team of 27 or 28. Now you're leading a high school of, I'm going to guess, 150 or so staff, probably a leadership team of anywhere between 5 and 20, depending on who you consider part of that team. Talk a little bit about how you've set the vision to get where you are, and 2, how do you make sure that vision makes its way all the way through from you, all the way down to kids, to parents, and so forth?
Yeah, I definitely think that's an area that we've been working to improve on. I took over during a really weird time. So I was an assistant principal. I took over in 2020. And so I just finished my 5th year as the high school principal. And so quite honestly, like there was a lot of good going on here before that, but it kind of was lost. And along with that, we lost a lot, maybe like a third or maybe a few more of our teachers. They either quit like on right there with no notice, maybe quit with a little bit of notice, or quit sometime during that year. So we lost a lot of teachers, and quite honestly, we had to figure out how to put it all back together. So I have an amazing leadership team of teachers, and I do believe that their insight has helped us get to where we are. But we've really had to redefine, like, where do we want to go? Our theme this next year, and my leadership team helped with this, is Roar, or the Tigers. So roar together. And we're really focusing on relationships, opportunity, right? I think opportunity for our students to again, be their best selves, right? What is it that we want them to become? Accountability, because I think accountability is a huge piece of that. But that's accountability to me, like my own self, holding myself accountable, accountability on our students, accountability on our team, like all of us. And then rigor. I think that during COVID, that piece was lost because we were focusing on other things, on other areas. And so we're really trying to bring that back and solidify our systems to help us to be able to put that in place as we move forward and continue to improve in all of our school goals.
First off, I love the term ROAR, and I love how you guys have kind of put that acronym together. certainly that's going to resonate well with everyone. I'm curious, you hit a couple of really, really important buzzwords for me. You talked about systems, you talked about accountability, you talked about really kind of bringing everyone together. And, when talking about your team, you're talking about more than just, say, some assistant principals. I hear you talking about your teachers and really getting everybody to move in the same direction and to get everybody focused on those things that really matter. A big part of being both the Utah High School Principal of the Year and potentially the National High School Principal of the Year is really making those moves, really moving things forward in your school. And I talked about it a little bit when I did your intro, but certainly now retaining 90% of your staff is, well, let's be honest, that's remarkable right now. And I almost don't even want to talk about it because I don't want to jinx you, right? Because it's July. The last thing you need is somebody shifting gears on you. But I want to talk a little bit about the staff retention piece, but then also maybe let's get into some of the work that you and your team are doing around literacy, increasing graduation, the PBIS work that's happening in your school. So take us through some of the awesome stuff that is happening there at Ogden High School.
Okay. And by the way, I think we are at almost 95% retention this year from last year.
That's fantastic.
So, which is helpful, right? Because then we get people on the same page and we don't have to keep trying to get new people on the same page.
Consistency matters, right?
It really does. I do believe, and I credit our school leadership team and my teachers and staff. We are moving in the direction of a professional development team, if that makes sense. And my professional development team is made up of my teachers. And I want my best teachers, right? Like my rock star teachers, helping to decide what is it that we all need? What kind of training do we all need so that we can be best for students, which again is where Rigor comes in, right? So this professional development team, we've given them the time and the space to meet together, and then they will help with our trainings throughout the year. And we've just started this over the last couple of years. I've started trying to put pieces of this together. These are members of my school leadership team that then take on a new role as kind of like tiger trainers, and then work to train everyone else. I do believe that the teachers in our building are going to listen to other teachers that are tried and true, and they have the same students. And if they're doing things that are working in the classroom, I believe that other teachers in the building are more inclined to listen to them and to try the things they're doing when they know these are the same students, right? It's not just some outside person coming in and telling us, hey, this is the greatest and the latest. This is something that we're doing. So I do believe this professional development team is a huge part of it. The other thing is like getting everything, all of our systems in line so that we can be proactive versus reactive, I would say. Our PBIS system, I can't take credit for this. I mean, I can take credit for continuing the work with it. I have a wonderful PBIS coordinator who is a teacher in our building. And again, she has the space to work within that. And one of our biggest, one of our goals last year was for teacher buy-in and to get 100% of our teachers buying into giving out Tiger Points, which is one of our rewards in our school. Our PBIS system, our expectations, that we call it triple OT, on time, on task, on track. And so everything in the building is triple OT. What are the triple OT expectations? We do the same thing for our teachers, right? On time, on task, on track. What does that look like in a faculty development meeting? What does that look like in a data meeting? So we've had great success with our teachers, again, wanting to hold each other accountable, hold themselves accountable and in each other. But it's not really about compliance. And it's turned over into more of a commitment. Like, what can I do to make our school better and to help our students? So I would say that the PBIS system, one of our best, and we're trying to get the rest of our systems to line up that way. A couple of years ago, I talked to my admin team and said, we need everything to be systematic so that if one person leaves, they don't take that system that they were working on and that they were responsible for. And I think that's been, I think, the biggest help is, will our systems run without any one of us? So if one of us were to leave, does the school continue to run in the way that it's been running? And I do believe that we're getting there. We have a lot to do, and I still have a lot to learn, but I think we're getting there. I believe in celebrating our staff, celebrating our students. We started a new system last year, and our student body president really wanted to run, we call it the Clash of the Classes. And this is where we started to have student representation on our community council and with parents and other staff and teachers, and then also on our PBIS committee. So in our PBIS data meeting, when we meet, we have a student representative there. It's nice to hear from them, to hear their perspective on what we're doing, and then we can sometimes communicate the why on why we're doing certain things. So I think that's been good. Celebrating teachers, we're always working on the relationships with students, and every like once a month we have a faculty development meeting, and our teachers come in and right at the beginning of the meeting, it's kind of like the bell assignment or the bell ringer. We have these postcards that our students have actually designed. So at the beginning of every year, we have a contest in one of our art classes, and kids design our postcards. And then teachers get to vote, and then we order the top 3 or top 5. I have a couple here. One of them I love because it's a picture. I don't know if you can see it, but it's of our building, right?
Nice.
But they're pretty. I mean, there's Ogden Will Shine. You can see that. Like they're really unique postcards. They all look very different from year to year, and we order those, and then my teachers write. We call them a compliment because we deliver them to students with a mint. And it's just a positive postcard. And what we're hoping is that at one point during the year, these kids get this postcard. And we do the same thing with teachers, like we call them Tiger High Fives, and teachers, they're delivered to teachers, but it's colleagues writing to each other, or maybe it's an admin writing to a teacher, or vice versa, or to staff. It's really anyone in the building. We, and really this is our district, not me, but we do some stay interviews in the spring. And at first I thought, oh my gosh, this is just another thing that teachers have to do.
Right.
I do not think that anymore. I felt like we got some really valuable information from that. You mentioned, like, what am I going to talk about in my 10 minutes? I think I'm going to talk about how I support teachers, because our teachers said the reason that they stay at Ogden High School is because of the support from the administration and the culture amongst each other. So the culture with their coworkers, those were the biggest reasons that they would choose to stay at Ogden. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for everything we've built here, and that teachers do want to stay. So celebrating teachers, I think, is huge. One thing that I did get out of those stay interviews, I think my teachers, there are 2 things I should say. They want like intentional visits, not just me walking around the halls in the morning saying, how are you? Intentional, like going in and knowing about their life. I think that's important, that I can go in and say, how's your kids? What happened on this? Or, you know what I mean? And really know my teachers. I think it's important. Every single one of them should feel important to me. And so that was one thing, is like scheduled intentional visits with my teachers. The other thing is, they love giving the compliments out to our students, but they said they would love to get those back from our students. And so we thought, okay, what's a quick win that we can end the year on? And we actually just started this. It must have been in March or the end of March, where we want students to write a postcard to teachers. Well, we tried to think, well, how are we going to do that? And we do that for, Teacher Appreciation Week. We do all sorts of things. But what we ultimately decided on is that every time we have a student in the office, which could be for multiple, right? A lot of the times when they're in the office, it's because of discipline or something along those lines. So what we decided is, instead of opening up the conversation with the discipline, it's going to be, hey, here's a postcard. Do me a favor. I want you to think about the one person in this building that you're grateful for. And will you write something to them? And it could be a current teacher. It could be a past teacher. It could be the lunch person, right? Our cafeteria people. It could be a secretary. It could be anyone. And so we just started that. And what I noticed is that when your mind shifts to more of a gratitude mindset, your emotions can kind of change. And so what I found for me is that it led into easier conversations when we talked about, hey, what are our triple OT expectations, and how are you not following those triple OT expectations, and kind of an easy reteach, and then what can we do differently? And then the other thing is, after that, we get to deliver that postcard to our teachers. So I think that's the nice thing. They're working on writing skills, which we're always working on. But I do believe in gratitude and in a mindset shift when we're thinking that way. In fact, I started reading a book this summer. It's called The Wonder Drug. Have you read that?
I have not. No.
Well, it's some doctors and I brought it anyway, it's pretty interesting, that The Wonder Drug. And what they're trying to do is really they're trying to, how do we get our profession so that we don't burn out? And what they found is that the more you care and show compassion for other people and empathy, the less likely you are to burn out. Which I think sometimes people think, I care too much and that gets too hard, and that's when I burn out. And what they're finding, and I'm not all the way through the book, but it is really, it's good information on how much do we care about our students, and can we show empathy towards them and still, right, manage our own personal lives, but stay invested in these kids, love them, and then not feel burned out. And so that's another thing that I really want to get across to my teachers, but also to my students, that just this thought of gratitude and being grateful for the opportunities we do have.
Yeah, there's all kinds of scientific research. I'm definitely going to check out that book on how shifting that mindset from some negative space into a space of gratitude. And actually, it's a chemical change in the brain, and it does absolutely change how you approach a conversation. So excellent recommendation there. I'm certainly going to be checking that out. So let's shift gears just a little bit. I'd like to, I want to make sure that we can get to some of the other stuff. There's so many amazing things that you just shared about Ogden High School, and I'm really grateful for that. Sounds like just an absolutely amazing place to be. Let's talk now a little bit about actually being the Utah High School principal here. And then we'll talk in just a second about how you found out about the national finalist. But I'm always curious. I was surprised at an assembly, our big annual spring assessment assembly, and kids invited me to come out on the floor, and that's when I found out I had been named state principal of the year. So tell me how that played out for you. I think it's always just so much fun to hear, how did you find out you were Utah principal of the year?
So we had a winter assembly right before our winter break, and it's always about fundraising, and we've done some fundraising, and if they raise a certain amount, we're going to do crazy things, right? So I was supposed to kiss a goat this year, and I had this kind of crazy Christmas tree dress on, and honestly, I was other principals will understand this. I was dealing with a cheer issue. Cheer. And
wait. Let's just pause on that for a second and let all the high school principals pull over, because they all just saw this white blinding rage go through their mind. Okay, you're dealing with a cheer issue.
Okay, I'm trying to get some things down off of one of our sites that's been posted, and I'm down in the front, and the assembly started, and my assistant's up there. He's great on the microphone, so he's up. He kind of helps start it. And I know my part when I have to go up to kiss the goat. So I'm on my phone pretty intensely trying to work through this issue. And then all of a sudden I look up, and he's right there, and he's obviously been calling my name. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, the goat, I guess it's not in the middle. So I start to walk up on stage and I see my amazing husband and my daughter was there. My son wasn't able to be there, but and all these people there, and I was confused. I thought I didn't know they were coming to watch me kiss the goat, right? But then I saw Rhonda, who is over our UASSP, and was kind of had that confused look, and then they came out and said, you are the high school principal of the year. So honestly, I was shocked, and just what a pleasant surprise. But it was shocking, and I did not feel like I was dressed for that occasion in a Christmas tree dress, but the assembly went on, and I kissed a goat, and it all went well.
Oh, that is so cool. And I'm assuming you got the cheer situation taken care of as well. So
that we did. We are moving in a very positive direction. So
oh, that's wonderful. I just love that so very much. So you've kind of alluded to it, but really quickly, maybe share with us, you've got 10 minutes when you are in Seattle this week to pitch yourself, to say, hey, this is what Shauna Haney and Ogden High School are all about. You mentioned you want to talk about how you support teachers. You've already talked about quite a few things. Is there something else maybe that you can add that we haven't gotten a chance to hear yet?
We talked about systems, but I really do feel like it's aligning systems and having you look at like, where are all of your arrows moving, right? Are we moving together as one? Or are we all functioning in our own separate boats, but all paddling, right? And so I think talking about those systems and how we get everyone in the same boat and all paddling in the same direction. I do feel like the teacher support and the professional development teacher team is one of the most important pieces of that. In general, like, I want to talk about culture and that culture is an everyday thing. And how do I make the time to intentionally work on that every single day? I would say that those are the big rocks that I will talk about.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. And certainly I think that's something that once you kind of get through that initial year or so as the building principal, when you figure out that your job isn't to put out fires, but it's to actually lead the school, and you're nodding your head like, yep, I went through that too, because we all did. I think that clear focus on culture is one of the most important things. It really, truly is. And interestingly, folks, for those of you who have listened to all 6 of these episodes, a common theme that you will find with all 6 of these amazing school leaders is they are very intentional about culture. They don't just sit back and let it happen. It's something that they're being extremely intentional about. I really, really appreciate, Shauna, that you talked about, and I want to come back to it because I think it's such an important piece, that one of your takeaways from the stay interviews was teachers saying, hey, we want you to be more intentional with your visits into the classroom. That was something for me, and I told leaders this constantly, since I started doing what I do now, but it's important to go into classrooms when the kids are there, right? I mean, we're going to go and give feedback. We're going to go in and coach up our teachers and all of those kinds of things, but it's equally important to be there when the kids aren't there. So maybe share, I'm sure you've already been thinking it through. What is your strategy, or at least one of the strategies you're thinking you'll employ this year to make that a reality?
Well, one thing that we do already, which has helped, is we have these rolling white tables. They're like rolling desks. And we try and have one on each floor. So our building is unique. We have a basement, a main floor, a second floor, and a third floor. And so it is challenging to be in all of those places. But we take different zones at every single transition period. And when we've been intentional about planning, like who's in which zone and at what time, and you can shift those zones, not only are we more visible to students, so that has helped with getting kids to class on time, right? Like being in the halls. But it's honestly just as easy to answer an email in the hallway when I'm on my computer on this rolling desk as to sitting at my desk in my office. And so we've been really intentional about using those tables. Sometimes you get into a rut and every principal will know this. You get into some type of a busy season and you just think, well, I'm just going to sit here. It's not good for our school. And so I think for us, again, it's about being proactive, being planned and organized enough that we can have those zones and we can be out in the building. So if I'm on the third floor, I'm going to visit every single teacher on that third floor during that day or during that week. And then maybe the next week, right, it's the second floor. Those are kind of our plans. In order to see every single teacher, I would need to rotate zones. A lot of the time, not a lot, all the time, I always say I'll take the third floor because I'm taking all the steps up and right and running to the top. But we are going to rotate that. A lot of the times we'll work outside of the bathroom area so that we see every single kid coming in and out, which does help. Yeah. But then in between that, being planned enough to know when on that floor, when are your teachers' prep periods and when can you go in and just have a conversation with them. And the conversation should be usually about maybe anything but school. Like, how are you? And we want that for our teachers to develop relationships to our students. And so right, how could we expect anything different from us to our teachers? So I just think it's important that we care about each other. And the more that we know about each other and are more invested in each other, I do think that commitment and that caring comes just naturally, organically.
Yeah, just another incredible example of how you're going to just continue to grow culture there at Ogden High School. I think that's fantastic. And our time has just absolutely flown by, which I'm not surprised by at all. So, Shauna, I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everybody here on the Leaning Into Leadership podcast. You've given us already so many great examples, but what might be one other thing you're doing right now to lean into leadership?
I think for me, it's about continuing to learn. So I mentioned I was reading the book, The Wonder Drug. I'm also reading, I heard a speaker, his name was Duncan Kirkwood, and his book is Rerouting. If you haven't read it, it's a great little read, but it's on resiliency. And again, how can I use that for myself? How can I use that for my teachers, my staff, and my students? So for me, I think the biggest thing is to continue to learn and grow. The other one that I'm reading, I don't know why I'm like that, but I usually have about 3 books, is Driven by Data. And how do I help?
Great book.
How do I help my teachers continue to grow and get better as we look at data and then make decisions based on that moving forward? So for me, leaning into leadership is knowing who I am as a leader and continuing to learn and grow and again, just get better and better at supporting my teachers and my staff, my students, my community.
Just love that so very much. Great recommendations, folks. We'll make sure and put links to all 3 of those books that Shauna has shared down in the show notes so you can go and check them out. I will tell you 2 of the 3 I have not read. I will be going and grabbing copies of those, but Bambrick Santoyo's Driven by Data, it's like a Bible for me. I love that book so very much. So fantastic stuff. Shauna, people are going to want to get in touch with you. They're going to want to follow you. They're going to want to just learn more. How do they get connected with you? Maybe they want to know more about your professional development team that you're putting together or something like that. What's the best way for them to find you, get connected with you, and learn more about Ogden High School?
Honestly, just an email. I am not great at social media, and that is something I could definitely learn more about. I've never posted anything in my life. I have a great social media teacher in my building that is younger and is great at posting social media, but that's one thing I am not great at. But just an email, honestly, Darrin.
Yeah, not a problem at all. We'll put Shauna's email address down there in the show notes for you guys as well, so you can get in touch with her. Man, this has just been wonderful. Shauna, thank you so much for joining me here on Leaning Into Leadership. Enjoy the United Conference in Seattle. Best of luck to you and all 5 of the other national middle school and high school Principal of the Year finalists. This was fantastic. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Darrin.
All right. A huge thank you to Shauna for joining me here on the Leaning Into Leadership podcast. What a fantastic conversation. I was just telling her after we hit the stop button on the record how and I've shared it with you guys a few times, I would not want to have to be the one to make the decision for who is ultimately named the National Middle School Principal of the Year and the National High School Principal of the Year. All 6 of them absolutely fantastic, folks. I hope you enjoyed this series. I would love to hear from you. Reach out, share some information with me. Let me know what you thought about this particular series. I've already had some conversations about NASSP, about some additional series going forward. So would love to get your feedback and to hear from you. Those of you who are headed to the United Conference, have an absolutely fantastic time there in Seattle. I unfortunately will not be there. I will be in Virginia this year during that time doing some work with one of my clients, but I certainly will be thinking of all of you. So, folks, again, thank you so much for joining me here for this special series on the Leaning Into Leadership podcast. Get out there, have a Road to Awesome week.